Hi everyone. Hello. I'm Shubham from Team Baatein. I'll be your host today. On our Baatein session today, we will be interacting with Debangshu Moulik. Debangshu is a visual artist based in Pune, and his work speaks colors, exciting experimentations with different materials, and his reflection and interpretation of his experiences and the circumstances. So, Debangshu, we are very excited to have you take us through your journey today. Before we start off the session, I just have a couple of things to show you. So, yeah, if you know this,
Oh
so
wow.
I'm fortunate to have some of your like artwork or stickers. So I'd attended a session, an event of Optical Asylum when I think back in 2019. So I had bought it from your exhibition. Yeah.
Thank you so
So
much.
yeah. So cool. So are you ready for the first question?
Yes.
Okay. So could you tell us a bit about your journey in visual arts? What made you want to learn about it, and how and where did you study?
Okay. So the first part of that question would be what made me want to start visual arts, which is like quite a broad spectrum of time, right? So
Yeah.
during my childhood, it started with my mom reading Bengali stories to me. So I'm based in Pune. My dad is
Yeah.
from Calcutta. My mom is from Maharashtra, but also Bengali. And she used
Okay.
to read these stories by Upendra Kishore Ray and popular ghost stories and stories about fantasy non-fiction essentially. And
Cool.
while she would read these stories to us, all of these stories had these beautiful pen and ink illustrations in them. And
Okay.
while she would read them to us, we would lay beside her and listen to them. And the only sort of source of visual dialogue that we had with the story was those illustrations that we could see and understand. And I can't read Bengali and I can't write Bengali. So that was the only sort of connect to the story that we had. And these stories were
Yeah.
beautiful
True.
stories about surreal lands of fantasy, mountains, this, that. Really amazing stories. Relate the story in my head, animate the entire story in my head through these single images. And I think so that was one of
Okay.
the starting points for being interested in the visual medium and making pictures and whatnot. And the second thing would be we had a VCR player at our house, and there was a
Okay.
shop called DVD Express here in Pune. And my dad used to rent out video cassettes from there. And some of the films that he would rent out would be old Disney films. So movies like Pocahontas,
Okay.
Hunchback of Notre Dame, and these stories. And as a kid, these were complete like these blew my mind away, and I was really I was like, this is something that if I could do in my life, I would be really grateful to be able to do that. And
Cool.
then what happened was due to my brother's eyesight, he had an eye problem, and he had a very high power. Our dad cut off the cable connection, so we could only watch movies on the VCR, or that TV was just redundant. So, uh, coming back home, the only sort of source of visual entertainment were comic books, and we had a lot of Asterix and Obelix comic books, Lee Fox Phantom books. I don't know if you remember, but then my cousins here had a lot of Tintin books, and these
Yeah.
were my source of entertainment. And while all the other kids in school would talk about what they had seen, this, that, uh, I had these comic books. And even there's this book by Dav Pilkey called Captain Underpants.
Okay.
So books like this from the Scholastic Book Fair. We used to have this Scholastic Book Fair every um,
Yeah.
the day of the report day, and my mom would often buy
Okay.
or one or two books from here. And yeah, these were my initial sources of inspiration. Then later on, we got a computer. Then my brother would get pirated DVDs of Dragon Ball Z, which I could just binge watch because they were all there in one place. And
Yeah.
so watching stuff like this, and yeah, I think so. Those have been the primary sources of inspiration, and books. Like we had a lot of books around. Reader's Digest used to make these beautiful coffee table books, which they would send out to their subscribers. And these books had some really interesting stories about not just pertaining to art itself, but about fakes and forgeries, different places in Earth, and like the beauty of the natural landscape around us and Earth in general. So looking at
Yeah.
all these books and stories, I think so. Those were my sort of initial starting points to enter into this
Hmm.
visual medium and making pictures and things in general. Yeah.
Cool then. So the next question is, since couple of months back, you have been
Okay, wait.
experimenting with
I think so.
yeah,
The second part of the question
how,
was, where did I
how and where
study?
did, yeah,
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 how and where did I
yeah.
study from?
Okay.
So three phases to this answer. One was the first standard to the 12th standard bit. First standard to
Yeah.
10th standard, I studied in a school called Vidya Bhavan, and I had this wonderful art teacher whose name was Smita Rani Miss. She was our art teacher. She
Okay.
always really encouraged me making cartoons, and being bored in class, I would always we had this rough book and I would just scribble away in it. And she would see that and she really encouraged that. Then uh, around the time when I got the first computer was when, as I said, Captain Underpants, right? So on the
Yeah.
back of the book, he had also another book called Ricky Ricotta's Mighty Universe, Dove Pilkey, the same author. And on the
Okay.
back of the book, there was a link to his website. And I went to that website, and he had these wonderful tutorials on how to make comics and how to tell stories, how he started telling stories, and that was really inspiring. So that was where I first started learning from, and from my art teachers back in school. Then around this time, I think so, I gave those elementary intermediate exams, which are I think
Yeah.
so, at least in Maharashtra, they are the primary drawing exams.
Exams.
So
Yeah.
uh, I used to go for a class called graffiti in Pune for that for a
Okay.
brief period, and then I didn't really go anymore. But so yeah, so these were the first sources of NT. Then as the computer came, I started going more to YouTube. It was one of the first phases of YouTube, and you could really Google how to draw Spider-Man, how to draw
Yeah.
whatever superhero you had in mind, Batman, all the comics that I was reading. You had documentaries on the maker of Tintin with Hergé.
Yeah.
Don't know the pronunciation, but so watching these, learning from these, there are a lot of YouTube tutorials and stuff that I followed. Then comes the part 11th to 12th, which I did in this junior college called Symbiosis in Pune, and
Yeah.
I did it. My major was in arts, so we had psychology, economics, and subjects like that, which were also quite interesting because you could also understand the real world application of those subjects.
True. True.
And along this time, I signed up for online courses on this website called Schoolism, which had courses by these two Pixar artists who run a studio, beautiful animated studio called animation studio called Tonko House, and they
Yeah.
had this
Okay.
course on the fundamentals of light and design, which I did during this time. And right after that was the time when I started applying to a lot of different design colleges, didn't really get in, and then I applied to this college in Pune itself called Abhinav Kala Mahavidyalaya, and I
Okay.
applied for a painting course, a Bachelor of Fine Arts of Painting. So it's a 4-year degree thing, and yeah, simultaneously the online classes just kept going on. I tried to do as many as I could find, and as many as I could afford, and there were a lot of websites. The Skillshare, I did a lot of classes on Skillshare around this time. They gave me this scholarship to study on Skillshare and then eventually make a class on there. And yeah, that's one have been like the primary sources of learning that I have had.
Yeah, that's great. That's why. Cool. So yeah, so let's move to the next question. So since couple of months back, you have started experimenting with a new material as well as a process and been creating 3D sculptures. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about your like inspiration behind those 3D sculptures and how has been the experience till now. Yeah.
Okay. So, when you say new, people have been 3D printing their
Yeah.
sculptures for quite some time now. I'm not like the first one to do it or anything,
Yeah.
but it's a new medium for me. That's definitely for sure. Artists like Frank Stella and even John Lasseter and all of the Pixar guys, they sort of started the
Hmm.
trend of making animated 3D films and really were like the pioneers of that medium. But the way that I started was in college, in the painting course that we have. It wasn't really just um, focused on painting itself. It had a lot of other branches as well, including art history, a sculpture, small short courses which you could attend and like learn from practicing professionals. So we had some sculptors come over to the college studio, show us their process, talk about making sculptures, and as well as art history in itself, having like sculpture is a very primary and important part of art history, right? So
Correct.
that's how I like was interested in sculptures. Also, my parents have been collectors of sculptures for a really long time. So when we shifted into
Oh.
this house, one of the first things that they bought was a sculpture of one of the renditions of old sculptures which you find in temples. And my dad used to collect sculptures even before that from his friends who used to work in the Archaeological Society of India. So he would collect some of the sculptures wherever they could, and from small fairs and in and around Calcutta, you'll find these exceptionally beautiful sculptures made by the artisans who live in the suburbs of Calcutta or in and around Calcutta. And my parents would collect that. So I always had an interest for these things. Around 3 or 4 years back, I started sketching ideas for sculptures because I was like, okay, the first step to making sculptures is ideating these sculptures, right?
Yeah.
So throughout my sketchbooks, which I'll show you in a bit, I had
Yeah.
different ideas for how I would make sculptures and in what scale. Because when you're really sketching on a piece of paper, you have all the freedom, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
True.
the only trouble that I was having was actually materializing these sculptures into actual 3D forms and everything. I tried working with this clay called Shadu Mati, which is the
Yeah.
medium that most artisans, at least here, use to build the sort of cast of their sculpture, and then they cast it in different mediums. So I tried working with that, didn't really, wasn't really successful, and plus in a small space like this, it's really hard to work with those materials and then get it cast and like work with those mediums. It's quite hard, right? So
True.
around the beginning of this year, I saw one of my cosplayer friends. He's a professional cosplayer and a sculptor as well, Samir Gundela. Um, he was he had shifted back to Bhopal due to the pandemic. He stays in Mumbai, but then he
Oh.
shifted back to Bhopal. He was 3D printing some of the parts for his the costumes that he made. And he's an award-winning
Okay.
cosplayer and all the different costumes that he was 3D printing some of the parts. And then it sort of clicked, like, why don't I 3D print the sculpture designs that I've been making for all these years? And then I just went, like, about for 2, 3 weeks, I went into the YouTube rabbit hole of learning how to translate 2D designs into sculptures, finding out some amazing sculptors. There's this guy who's this old man and he sculpts these beautiful little figurines in his basement, and he very nicely documents the entire process, and just finding and researching about stuff like this, figuring out how to work with the 3D softwares and how to work with the 3D printing medium, right? Because the printer also has its own way of working and like it has its own personality of sorts, which you have like only by trial and error can you figure that out.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
then I went, but then the main problem was, where do I get a 3D printer? Do I make that big investment and suddenly buy a
Hmm.
3D printer? I didn't really have the funds to do that. So I searched on Google 3D printing services in Pune. And I mailed all the 5 people who came up and had an internet presence. One of them mailed back immediately and gave me a quote for about 4 lakhs, which I was like, I can't afford this. I'm a college student. And then I came to know that this guy actually lives and works. His studio is around the automotive industry, like auto parts and stuff. When they, I think so,
Yeah.
you're a
Okay.
product designer, right? So when they make
Yeah.
the and test the products, they 3D print the product. So he was
Correct.
actually giving me a quote for thinking that I was a car company or something. And then I told him,
Oh.
no, man, my budget is a bit lesser. And then I went to his place, spoke with him, and then we figured out a common ground to a point where it was a manageable budget. And then I just started 3D printing through him. So I used to send him the main files, prepare them, and he also actually had quite a bit of fun looking at the sculptures. And he would ask them, "What are you making these for? What do you make these yourself?" Because he's used, like, the examples that he showed me were just these tiny parts which he made for cars and whatnot.
Some mechanical parts. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, this was really fascinating for him as to why somebody would make these sculptures and toys,
Okay.
3D printed, whatever. Uh, so yeah, that's been the process of me making.
Okay. Like,
Yeah,
what software do you like use and create them in? First, design them.
one is Blender and the other one is called Nomad Sculpt on the iPad. So you can
Okay.
really
Cool.
sculpt on the iPad, and I find it much more intuitive sculpting on the iPad than sculpting on the computer, because it's much
Oh,
more of a
yeah.
hand-based
Like
thing. And, like, it's
doing like
closer to
in the
building
reality.
actual sculptures
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
computer, where you have to click and work with them. But
Correct.
yeah, these are the two
Cool.
softwares that I primarily use. And this software called Preform to set the 3D printing files up so that he can print it well with the supports and everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. For the thing. Cool. That was interesting. Yeah. So the next question is, can you explain our audience a bit about what exactly is a zine?
So zine is a short form of magazine, and
Okay.
the origins of it lie in the fact that it was an informal magazine. So like a big scale production of a magazine has a huge, like, cost attached to it, right? Because you print all the
True.
papers and everything. And zines came out of, I think so, predominantly from the culture of Xerox machines, where you could cheaply print images, words, poems, whatever your mode of expression is, and just a quick way of getting it out to people, and just stapling together a bunch of Xerox pages and an informal way of distributing your ideas and art or whatever. So that's what a zine is now in the internet culture. It has just been like a short documentation, I guess, of a bunch of your poems, artworks. Different
Hmm.
artists often collaborate, and some, like, really beautiful zines have come out of this movement.
Cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
that's what the zine is.
So great. So, like most of your work communicates a story with the viewer. So, taking example of your zines, like such as the old T-shirt as well as the birthday zine. So, can you tell us a bit about what is good storytelling and what's the importance of observation in it?
Okay, so what is good storytelling is quite a complicated question, but I'll try to dial it down into a sentence. Is,
Sure.
according to me, again, all these answers are according to me. I feel that a
Yep.
good story is something that conveys the feeling that the artist has directly to the viewer. So a good story conveys that feeling in a very clear and direct manner to the person experiencing that story. That's what a good story is, according to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
And
the
what was
next
the
part was,
second bit?
yeah, observation. So, what's the importance
Observation.
of observation? Yeah.
So in my practice, I really enjoy observing all the things around me. Often the things I collect and keep are really things that you probably wouldn't even look at, and you would discard in some instance. Say, in this instance, all the pamphlets that you get with your newspaper.
Yeah.
I think most people would just discard them, but I really enjoy looking at the pamphlet, thinking about the person who designed it, what software did they use, what were the circumstances, what was them conversing with the client look like. I just imagine these things. How would I do it if I had the opportunity to make something like that?
Yeah.
And I keep and collect these things. And another part of the entire observation process is observing my surroundings, which has not been possible as much due to the pandemic. I haven't really been
True.
going out since I live with my parents who are above 60. So, but before the pandemic, to travel to my college, there were two ways. One was I take my bike and go there, and the other one was traveling by the public bus. Right. So
Yeah.
initially, I would go in with my bike to college, but then I sort of transitioned into traveling on the public transport. The main reason being, you would see people from very different walks of lives, people whom I probably wouldn't interact with in any other circumstance on the bus. And there would be people who were coming in from the railway station. They didn't really know direction, like have any directions. Their phone wasn't equipped probably with maps, so they would ask you. Then I would have to communicate where exactly, how do you navigate this space, and then figuring out the public transport design, because many a times these guys wouldn't really be able to understand where is this bus going, the
Yeah.
numbers not visible. There's no bus route. There have been hundreds of pamphlets stuck over the bus route, so they can't really navigate. So talking with these people, then if the bus is crowded, you would see people on their phones, right? So you would see the wallpapers that they have on their phone. What is their aesthetic? What do they watch on TikTok? And
Mm.
all of this stuff used to be very fascinating for me. You would see people from all different walks of life. Uh, People whom you wouldn't see in any other case. And I found that really enjoyable. And these experiences often directly translate into my drawings and artworks or the stories that I'm writing. And yeah, so I think so. Observation makes for a very rich storytelling experience. And especially if you're talking about fantasy, if you are telling stories which are non-fiction and the stories which are based in fantasy based stories, the characters
Okay.
that you embed in these stories need to be real people to make that entire scenario believable. And
Yeah. True.
observation plays a very key role in that process.
Cool.
So yeah.
So, how do you see your surrounding and how do you implement those in your work? So, if you want to add something to that, but most of the thing I think it was in your answer right now. But if you want to add something, sure, you go ahead.
So there's another thing with the pamphlets. What I would
Okay.
often do is on stray pieces of things which are there in the surroundings, like light boxes and stuff like that. I would often draw and doodle on these while waiting for the bus to come, if I
Yeah.
found a little bit of a
Okay.
spot. And these would always be covered by pamphlets inevitably, right? Because people had to advertise. And initially I was annoyed by that, but then I was like, okay, how can I take their pamphlets and use it in my work? And then I just started, whenever somebody would paste something over the artwork, I would take that and sort of incorporate that into my own artworks in some way or the other. So it was bringing that entire thing into a circle of sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So, the last question before we shift to the like showing your work thing. So, how did you feel about when you saw your zine, the old shirt, getting covered on the official Vice?
Nice, yeah. It was
Yeah.
quite. I was. I was in. I had always looked up to the documentaries that Vice had made on YouTube, and like I really enjoyed the content that they were putting out, and to be a part of that,
Okay.
especially the creators project bit of Vice, which had a lot of, they
Yeah. Yeah.
covered a lot of artists and creatives all around the globe. I would often read the articles that they had up on there, and I don't know, somehow something connected in the alignment of the internet. They saw that, and the fact that they republished it, and they did mail me asking that, can we republish this on our website? Is that fine? And
Okay.
asked me a bunch of questions. But yeah, that was really a sort of nod that I'm heading somewhere in the correct direction, and I probably want to make more things like the thing that I just
Yeah.
made, because I took a lot of time with that zine, because I kept refining it, unnecessary edits, and then after one point I was just like, this week is the last week. Whatever is the end result of it, I won't overwork it further. I'll just release it. Let's see what happens. And it was an affirmation to the fact that a finished thing is probably better than me constantly reworking and
Yeah.
rehashing and nitpicking the idea. So yeah.
Even that the old shirt was like a favorite thing which I read. Like, the
Thank
last
you.
when you compared it with like it's same with the people that we meet, so you get comfortable with them as it goes ahead. So yeah, that was really interesting. So I think it's the perfect time to show your work, show all our audience your work, and if possible, sure.
Okay, so while showing the work, I'll divide it
Yeah.
into two parts. One are these
Okay.
paintings that I make. The paintings are essentially a break for me from working on projects, commission stuff, and projects that I work in collaboration with other people, right?
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
paintings are sort of a break from that, in a sense that they help me slow down. Often, when you're making things digitally, you have to make it fast. There's somebody
Hmm.
constantly going. You have to show it and share it with people, right? You aren't the
So
only
true.
person consuming it. And with the paintings and the drawings and the ideas that I have in my sketchbook, I can really experiment and try out different things which probably don't have a linear fashion of engaging with an audience or telling something necessarily. They can even depict a sort of thought chain, because you don't think in a linear fashion, right? There's no beginning, middle,
Yeah.
end. You think in branches, like the way that I envision it is in branches. And the paintings and the drawings in my sketchbook that I'm about to show you are um, representations of that branches, of those branches which I'm talking about. So they are thought patterns in some way, uh, and they depict how thought works. Because I'm not really okay. I'll depict this exactly when I'm making these drawings. It's just that I'll go with the flow, and paint being a physical thing, it's not you. There's no undo button. There's no, you can't. You have to wait and watch the paint dry,
Yeah.
and when it dries it looks different, when it's wet it looks different. So yeah, it was a way of experiencing and having fun with a different medium a bit more slowly, because the
Cool.
digital
Cool.
medium, its benefits are that it's quite fast, but sometimes those can be the drawbacks as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is my sketchbook. This is where I ideate most of my ideas. As I said, I collect a lot of materials from different places. So this is
Yeah.
my coffee bill. Again, I'm thinking about what went into the design of this. How does this clearly communicate an idea? Something like this, which is a Kinder Joy pamphlet for making
Oh. Okay.
this toy. So
Oh.
the and then it opens up in a chest, and stuff like this fascinates me. I'm really you'll see a direct
Cool.
influence of these things in my picture. And then also thinking about, okay, this thing very like, it helped me understand how to build that, right? Because you get different
Yeah.
parts of that. So this does its job well, but how do I make this better? So I'm thinking about things like that. How do I make this courier slip from Tirupati, something something courier, better, or is it the best it can possibly be already? uh, so yeah, I collect stuff like this, which other people would call junk, but I enjoyed things like this IKEA booklet, which I think so the person who designed this didn't really think that I would be closely looking at how he aligned the entire text and like these
Yeah.
disclaimers I do. So yeah, looking at these things again, observing, and this is a sticker by Nishant Sanjay, who's an artist based in Bangalore.
Okay.
And again, I took a pamphlet, put his sticker on top, and then put this in another context, which this pamphlet is only available in Maharashtra. It's in Marathi, right? So
Yeah.
like these two wouldn't have probably interacted, and I made them interact. And then
Yeah.
again, these are just ideas, drawings, me figuring out my own thoughts. These are studies. I often do life
Mm.
studies. Since I did that painting course, that also taught me a lot of things. My professors there were Samir Gorde and Rajesh Chaudhary, two very brilliant
Okay.
young artists who were. They helped me. They helped me quite a bit, and I would all like they were my friends. Like they are my friends, and they were really responsive and answered all the questions that I had with a lot of patience. So yeah, this is the one of the first sketches I made for that
Oh,
for this
3D
one.
sculpture.
Yeah. So things like that. Then when the vaccine came out, there were two vaccines. Do we get them? Who
Yeah.
gets them first? So I'm thinking
True.
through these. These don't really have the specific purpose which often illustration has, which is to depict an idea. This is a depiction of multiple ideas in some sense,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
possibly do when somebody commissions me to make an artwork, right? Because they'll be
Yeah.
like, okay, what have you done? I don't think this translates very well. Then these are sketches for future paintings, again, experimenting with the pamphlet and the vaccine. Drawings for different things, ideating. I ideate often on post it notes and different
Yeah.
scraps of paper, and a pamphlet is there in the back. There are different layers to this. So yeah,
Same.
when I don't like a drawing, I cover it up with
Yeah.
post-its.
Yeah. Even I've seen it in many of your posts. Yeah.
I keep switching between quote unquote the realistic way of drawing, which is live drawing and drawing from a model, between the fantasy based drawings or something that people would probably call the cartoon side of stuff, because I
Yeah.
want to create, even in the other paintings and stuff, I want to create a bridge between these two uh, ways of making pictures, right? Because
Okay.
like when I was a kid and I used to read the newspaper, I would just look at the pictures primarily. The cartoons of R.K.
Okay.
Lakshman and Unni Krishnan and these guys were often solace in these vast fields of text and writings and like photographs. They were often things that I could, I had no qualms approaching. I wasn't afraid to approach those, and I could often understand the people depicted in them. So I've always been also drawn to the political cartoon, the genre of the political cartoon, and I've like
Okay.
researched quite a bit into the lives of. Again, this is something like I'm making bags. So where do you
Hmm.
start making bags? So then you just start sketching out. You see bags there. Then anywhere on the street you look at a bag, you look at it a completely different way. The other day,
True. Yeah.
I was near my house and I saw this bag with this plush stitched into the bag with a glitter background, and I was fascinated by that. So when you're making things, you often it helps you look at the existing world in a different way and appreciate and respect it as well, right?
Agreed. Agreed. Totally. Yeah.
So this was I had gone with my parents to a temple called Bhuleshwar near in Pune. My brother had come and yeah, so I drew it over there.
Okay.
These are again ideas for paintings. This was materialized into a painting that I'll show you in a bit.
Yeah.
Again, more ideas. This is a sketch of my brother. More thought patterns. So this is something that I do as a calming exercise at the beginning of the day, before I delve into the all the work that I have, sending emails, this that. I make it a point to do something like this so that it helps me think and like meditate on what my current scenario is.
Nice.
Again, sketches, figuring out working with paint, um, stories for idea, like that. ideas for stories, sketches for paintings, sketches for paintings, more sketches. I think so. My sketchbook, I have like three more of these, and then a
Yeah.
cupboard full of these books. So the entire session can go on. I'll just quickly browse through these
True.
drawings. Uh,
Okay.
so this is again working with those pamphlets and
Wow.
incorporating them. This is about Dragon Ball Z. So recently, I think so there was something somebody had asked that what role does anime play, and it does play a very big role in my
Hmm.
upbringing. So yeah, thinking about that, thinking about presenting, packing, and shipping artworks. Yeah. So you'll see a sort of documentation of my life in these images, the images in my book.
Yeah.
This is a study of the Narasimha statue in Hampi. So I'm also fascinated
Oh,
by the
yeah.
old Indian sculptures. Right? They're really beautiful. If you go to the different
True.
temples and observe them, um, quite I'm blown away by their creativity. And this was in response to the Garden of Earthly Delights, a painting by Hieronymus Bosch, who is this Dutch
Okay.
painter, and
Okay.
he used to make paintings for cathedrals. So I was just thinking about him making that in that context, like 16th, 17th century. I don't really remember the time. This is something that I'm working on. But yeah, stuff
Okay.
like this. And then scribbles like
That's so
this,
cool.
spare paper. These are
Informative.
some of
So yeah.
the paintings that I'm working on. These are fairly big paintings. I don't know if you can. So you saw how this translated from the
Yeah.
sketchbook
From the
to
sketchbook drawing.
this, um, and again, these are just me meditating and thinking about my environment, the people that I see. Now that the pandemic is raging, I'm not going anymore. But I used to go on these walks, and you would see these florists and different people working, finishing the end of the day wares and vegetable sellers. Just some of them being like dejected, and okay, there are a lot of paintings. Many
Yeah.
of them are packed and kept inside. Since these catch a lot of dust, these
Okay.
are like dust
Yeah.
magnets.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, studies like these, something which I don't really show that often, but I do make like studies and stuff of
Yeah.
like based on my painting, the stuff that I learned in college essentially, because it does help me
Okay. Yeah.
balance out between these things, and making these is a refreshing thing once you've been doing that. Then this is a skate deck that I bring. I haven't really
Yeah.
skateboarded ever, but it was always a fascination to me to learn how to skateboard and how to like. I was fascinated by that culture growing up
Yeah.
watching movies and stuff. Okay, that's it because all the rest of the paintings have been stashed away and really hectic. I'll just show some these. So this followed a bit of a different process than these. In these, sometimes I sketch out the idea first, then make these. In some paintings, I have no predefined plan. I just go with the flow,
Oh.
and
Okay.
so I keep trying to balance out different techniques and methods of making these images. This is my workspace where I
Cool.
spend most of my. But as I was saying, in my walks and in my walks, daily walks that I used to take, I would observe a lot of people, vegetable sellers. At the end of the days, they haven't probably sold most of their vegetables, so sometimes they would look dejected. If they are selling a lot, then they would look happy. Or a florist. Uh, how does the economy of a florist look in the time of a pandemic? And yeah, all this stuff used to really fascinate me, and it was quite important as a way to get out of my own head because throughout the day I would be in here making paintings, and it can often be easy to get wrapped up in your own thoughts, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
walking around and looking at these different people really helps me recontextualize myself in this planet, and yeah, my problems don't
Yeah,
seem that big anymore when I
yeah.
go for
So
them.
that's a big wow after seeing your work. So it was like really interesting to go through that process from sketchbook and also those paintings. Yeah. So I think we'll continue with the next questions. So yeah, the next question is based on your TED talk, which is the art of hustling. In that you like mention hustle hard on the internet and you can make it. So based on that, like what role has internet and social media played in your creative journey? And a follow-up question to that is, and how has it brought you works and commissions?
Okay,
So yeah,
so the first part, what role has it played in my journey, right? uh,
yeah,
Internet has been completely game changing for me in terms of learning and having access to learning. uh,
true.
I have
Yeah,
been able to access things which I can't even imagine people accessing 100 years ago. Thoughts and ideas from across the continent, um, different times in history, documentation of that, and learning and reading and researching about that has been immensely easy and satisfying experience thanks to the internet. But also, internet and social media do are like they're quite entertaining, right? And when you're trying to come up with ideas, it's much easier to just open your phone and check what other people are up to, um,
yeah,
compare yourself to other people, because on the internet I'm not really sharing all the sketches that didn't make it, right? I'm sharing the
yeah,
sketches that I like. It's a very curated worldview, right? And that can often,
true.
when another person is experiencing that, they can often feel that that's all this person makes, this person has no failures, and that can be delusional, and like it does put you in a rut sometimes. But over the years I've tried to sort of make myself understand as well that that's not always the case, and it's again a curated worldview. It's not really nobody's sharing the rejections and the stuff that they don't really want to share. One thing that I would like to call is I think so you as well are asking the question like how did you get to the point where you had commissions and you get like requests
Yeah,
for people to make
yeah,
things for them. I have always wanted like around when I was 14, 15, about 7, 8 years back. uh, that was my dream, and I didn't know how to do it because in my family, my parents aren't really like they are creative, but they work at jobs, right? Like my dad
yeah,
worked at Tata Motors, my mom is a guidance counselor at a school, so the freelance system doesn't really exist in that like with them, right?
yeah,
And I was really like, how do I won't be able to make it. Like, there's no way that I can draw and make these images and make a living out of it, right? But as I did it throughout the years, the first 5, 6 years, I there was a point where I used to count the number of times somebody would ask me, okay, hey, you want to work on this project, and then just ghost and disappear, right? And once
mm,
it reached 250, which was when I was in like 11th, 12th, I was so dejected that I stopped counting, and I was like, okay, I'll just continue making things. Let's see what happens, and that has helped me sustain my practice. And eventually, throughout the years, that compounds, right? Like all the portfolio. Like I had a portfolio on Tumblr, DeviantArt when that was a
mm,
thing. Then Instagram serves as a work portfolio for me. I do not really share a lot of personal and private stories on there. And then like last step comes my website. So I've always had
yeah,
these streams because I've been trying to make it in, like I've been trying to get and like make a sustainable uh, practice out of this for about 8 years. And I wouldn't say I'm the best, or like, but I can see myself slowly getting better. So I think
yeah.
so. It all depends upon how the things that you do today compound into your future. So maybe once people think about it in that way, they can think more long term in some ways, which I probably didn't
True.
have back then, because I used to be constantly in a state of flux, going like, I probably won't make it, and what happens then? Do I have to work? What do I work as? I can work as a DTP operator, but I don't have the Corel Draw, which is a vector-based software. So I can't really work on that. And then thinking
Yeah.
about things like this, would I make it as a grocery shop owner? I probably won't, because managing a grocery shop is a immense exercise. And then I would go and look at grocery shops, think about what his day looks like, what his routine is, and then that circle starts again. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's been the gist of like how somebody should look at a creative journey, or not.
True.
I could be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, then the next question is like, what's your first step when you start off with any kind of project when you freelance?
Panic. I panic,
Okay.
and then the panic snowballs bit by bit onto the point where I can't really do anything else but focus on that project. But I do have a tendency to
Hmm.
procrastinate. Over the years, I have uh, built this practice where I effectively procrastinate. So I'm making these paintings and things when I'm procrastinating. So I try to bring some productivity into the procrastination. But yeah,
Cool.
that's my first step.
Yeah. So, for most of your works, like the Google Doodle for Amrish Puri's birth anniversary, I think the Ambedkar biography comic of or the Vice video on how city works, Mumbai. So research must have been the bedrock. So give us a few tips on how do we make our research game stronger and how do we make it more fruitful?
Okay, one thing is what many people do for research nowadays is go on the internet, read as many articles,
Yeah.
but everybody already knows that. Another thing which I really enjoy doing is I try to buy books and read as many books as I can, because these books often have things that you won't really find on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Images or tidbits of a story or whatever you're working on, and or you can just go to a crossword. And now with the pandemic, you probably won't be able to go, but in a non-pandemic scenario, you can just go to crossword, browse through their vast collection of books, figure out the story that you want to tell, try to research a little bit, and yeah, that's one of the ways that I have found to be quite fruitful while researching for these stories, and a way that you can really gain access to a different information which probably isn't available on the first page of the Google search.
Yeah. That's true. Okay, so yeah, so the next question is about like again comes to mediums. So you express yourself and experiment using a lot of different and exciting mediums. So which medium has been your favorite so far?
There's no one favorite medium, man. That's like asking which one is the favorite child. I work
True.
on one medium, then I get
Hmm.
so saturated with working on that medium that I don't really enjoy working in that medium for a little bit of time.
Okay.
Then I go work in some other medium. Then I realize that I'm probably not that good in that medium. That really humbles me, and I
Hmm.
come back to this medium with a renewed interest.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So next question is about we often see the depiction of the city you live in, the people there, and their lifestyle in most of your work. So you right? How long have you been living in Pune, and like, what's your favorite thing about Pune? Yeah.
Uh, I've been born and brought up in Pune, so I've been
Okay.
living here forever. And favorite thing, there's no one favorite thing. It's just Pune as a character, right?
Yeah.
And whenever I'm talking about Pune, or I'm making a picture about Pune, uh, I think so I can very honestly tell that, because I've lived here, right? I have all my
Yeah.
experiences, my memory, a vast portion of that is based in Pune. So whenever I'm talking or writing or making images about Pune, there's a very honest transmission in that uh,
Hmm.
medium of expression, and which is why I choose to express Pune the most in my images. But
Yeah.
if I go to a different place, then I do try to embody the experience of experiencing a new place as much as I can and to the best of my
Okay.
abilities.
Cool. So the next question is, yeah, this is the next question. So how do you do drawing on your own, and how much time to impart for sketching for NID entrance? Okay.
Okay, I didn't clear the NID entrance. Right.
Yeah.
Number one,
Yeah.
how to do drawing for your own and how much time to impart. Okay. For me, in my practice, making personal projects and making drawings that reflect my personality and everything has been a very crucial part and that I enjoy doing a lot. That being said, if I keep doing it for a long time, I do get saturated with that. So I try to balance it out again. Like I think so, you'll find the word balance recurring in the sentences that I'm saying. But I try to
Hmm.
balance it out with different things. If I'm too saturated just making um, drawings and paintings, then I'll probably go learn how to edit videos. Then I'll feel like really dumb about not knowing this. And then I'll watch thousands of videos of all of these people documenting their experiences, teaching you basically for free. And yeah, then you get to learn something, you fail at it. The first thing that you make, you just look at it and are like, yuck, and then you try to get better at it. And then being wound up in that thought, when you come back, at least when I come back to drawing and painting and making my own work, I come back with renewed interest.
Okay. So the next question, Arctic to can is asking, I think, how to study light while digital painting.
Uh, okay, I think so. One of my friends, Tara Anand, she's a artist, brilliant artist.
Okay.
She had said that in her SVA course, one of the instructors had told her that try to think of light as liquid goo, and when you're painting that, that just makes the process simpler. And I have found
Okay.
that when I'm often painting and I'm having a hard time painting light, uh, that has helped. Another thing is I know this word keeps everybody says it, and it's the hard part, but it's just practice. You make 500 of those studies of light, and then you sort of give yourself an answer. And I remember when I used to ask my professors, Samir sir and Rajesh sir, some questions. Many of those questions answers would be you just practice, make a lot,
Yeah.
and then you'll come up with a conclusion on your own. So that practice bit just remains constant. You make, you go on making, and then you try to get better, and then gradually you make small progress over the years, and it
Yeah.
compounds eventually.
Okay. Okay. So, what is your advice for fresh graduate who is trying to make a career in illustration? Bharti 55 Sharma one. Yeah.
Practice. Many of the questions can be answered by just that one. Just keep doing your thing. You want to make a career in illustration, right? So look at the illustration. See uh, what you like in the world around you. Uh, just see whatever you like, and then look at it a bit more intently and figure out why do you like that thing and why do you not like certain things. Both are equally
Yeah.
important. Things that you don't like and things that you like. And over the years, as you observe and look at things more, you come up with an answer, or you can see a pattern amidst the things that you like and the things that you don't like, and interweaving these two things and your own skill and ability throughout the course of a lot of years, you will be able to make a career, I'm sure. Again, I am a fresh graduate. I graduated like last year, so many of the uh, whatever I'm saying could be wrong. Maybe 10 years down the line, if you ask me that question, I'll be like, no,
Some,
grow more plants
yeah.
to be a good illustrator. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. So, Pila Pyas asks, like, have the online comparison and the change it made to your psyche change how you post?
Yeah, a lot of things affect what I post and share on the internet, but the online comparison and change it made to your site. I do post a lot of different things than what I used to initially post, and what I've done is I've set barriers on my Instagram. So if I spend more than 15 minutes, my Instagram shuts down, right?
Oh,
So I have done things like that which have affected how much I'm posting, what I'm posting, how much I'm sharing. If I get too saturated with the comparison trap, I just shut it down, go read a book, keep my phone away for a couple of hours. So yeah, the online comparison and those things have had an effect on what I post. Hila Vyas
okay,
is a wonderful animator. He's Saksham Arora, and he
okay,
makes really good
cool,
books and stuff. Everybody, like whoever's watching
great,
this, can
great,
check his work out.
sure. Yeah, same question from him, I think. Like, do you sleep next to your paintings, and what do mornings feel like?
No,
Yeah.
I sleep in the other room because I want to keep a
Okay.
distinction between my workspace and the space that I sleep in. Otherwise, I'll sleep in my workspace and get no work done. Mornings feel like what I used to do earlier was I used to wake up and check my phone. And again, going back to
Hmm.
that comparison trap thing, over the years, I figured out that if you just don't do that, mornings are much more brighter. You look at the trees, you look at the birds. I have a tennis court next to my house, so I look at the people playing tennis.
Cool.
There's this young kid who plays tennis really well, and I literally saw him getting better through the course of the pandemic because he used to come every day,
Oh,
morning at 6 o'clock.
okay.
So I started observing things like that once I shut down. So my phone. So mornings feel like that.
Cool. Uh, yeah, I think this question, I think, how do you get better at storytelling in your work? I think you've answered it, but anything to add if you feel?
Practice and make
Okay.
stories. The only thing
Hmm.
is that if you keep making it, uh, eventually you will be at a different point, and your definition of what it is to be better also changes as you keep working on a thing, right? As you get
Okay.
more and
Yeah.
more involved in it, what is better is also a question that you should ask yourself. So uh, as you keep doing it, only then will these questions arise in your own mind. You start thinking about it more, and yeah, that's how you get, I guess, better at anything in life. Just keep doing it.
Cool. Okay, so I think we are like running out of time, just 2 minutes left. So we'll have to end. Just a last question to you, like which creatives or designers are you loving and getting inspired by at the moment? And like, yeah, whom will you want to collaborate in coming future?
Okay, people I'm getting inspired by or have been by is very important because I used to go to comic cons and meet a lot of really talented artists, and I have learned a lot
Okay,
from them. Them being two people, my professors in college, Samir Gode and Rajesh Sir, whom I've spoken about. Then people like Sumit Kumar, who runs Buckamax. He makes web comics. Anand Radhakrishnan, who's a wonderful artist. He makes comic books and has recently published two comic books. Wonderful person, and really like I spoke with him and like learned a lot. Then Bhanu Pratap, who's also a comic book artist, I met at Comic Con and learned a lot from, and had a lot of fun hanging out with him. Then Jaikar Marur, who's another graduate of NID, an animator currently working in I think so UI UX stuff, but a wonderful artist. Then Somnath Pal, who's
yeah,
made a short film called Death of a Father. Wonderful short film,
yeah,
beautiful artist, like goes without saying. Then B. Boswan Bose, graphic novelist and artist based in Kolkata. Dipankar Singh Gupta, who's a wonderful animator currently based in London. Dipankar actually was the first one who taught me the fundamentals of animation, which is bouncing ball and different things like
oh,
that. And he's
yeah,
a wonderful artist, makes really great work. And he lives, he's actually my neighbor. He lives near my apartment. So yeah.
okay, cool then. So I think we are at the end of session now, and like
And I
it
might be
was
missing out
really,
on some names.
yeah,
The only problem with the who
okay, okay,
inspired you question is that you often look back at that question and you're like, oh, this person also, this person also. So whomever
Yeah.
I might have missed who are there, it's just that my memory is not very great.
Cool, cool, cool. That's so cool. Yeah. So, yeah, it was great having you today, and I think it must have inspired many of our audience, and like it has inspired me, and really great insights. And yeah, cool. So, I think we'll have to end the session, and bye bye. Yeah,
Thank you so much, man. I had a lot
yeah,
of fun being here. It was enjoyable doing
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Bye.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Yes, take care.